All right, let's begin. My name is Joseph Schooland. I'm an account manager here at Populi. Maybe you already know me. Maybe we've talked before. Maybe we've done webinars. I don't know. And you might have also talked with our other account manager here. That's Nick Holloway. Or maybe you know some of our support team. There's a number of folks who are kind of on our front lines there who maybe you're getting to know. Anyway, we hope you're getting to enjoy Populi and you're not afraid to reach out to us for any kind of help. And I hope this is helpful for you today. As always, you've heard this plenty of times if you've been on these calls before, but just in case, I have a Q&A box right over here on my other screen, and I can see questions as they pop up there. You can save them till the end if you want, or you can type them in as we go along. And I'll probably wait until the end to answer them. We'll see. I reserve the right to wing it or ad lib if I need to. But don't be afraid to put them in there. If you're worried you're going to forget them, go ahead and put them in right away. But I will keep an eye on those. I'm not really going to be looking at the chat too much. So those might get lost. If I remember, I'll try and keep an eye on them. But if my previous reputation is true, then I end up missing all the chat ones. So please put it in the Q&A because then I can check them off as I answer. I'm going to go ahead and kill video and share my screen, and we will get started. All right, you should see a login page here. Let's go ahead and log in. And starting out, I will give you the normal this is Populi routine, essentially. How do you find help? Some of you here maybe were hoping for some kind of help and you didn't know how to find it, and you landed in this meeting. And so I want to tell you there's lots of ways to get help, not just these recorded trainings, and I want to show you those. First off, click help in the top right. You can search the knowledge base if you're one of those types who likes to research on your own. You can also look at our YouTube channel if you're one of those types who likes to research on your own, but you like it to be a little more visual. We even have some interviews there, and we have a number of other trainings recorded for you to look up if you want. You can open a support request. If you are faculty or staff, then you have access to our support team, both through phone and email. And this is kind of like an email where you just hit open a support request and you'll send us a message. And then whenever we reply back, it will go into your email. If you want to keep up to date on those requests, you can view your requests here just to see the status of them. And if you really just want to talk it through with somebody, all of our support team can see what you see on their end. And so you can talk to them over the phone. I'll give you the number right now. You can memorize it. 877, the number 4, and the word Populi. 8774 Populi. If you have some ideas for us, you can make a feature request. If you want to interact with our other clients, you can visit the user forum. And the last thing you can do, if you want, is you can reach out to your account manager. So if I'm your account manager, or if it's Nick, you can reach out to one of us. And we'll schedule a webinar just like this, except you'll be able to talk and it will just be one-on-one, you and us, or maybe not one-on-one, maybe us to a department. Maybe it's all your faculty. Maybe it's all your whole billing department, however you want it to be. And so these are really helpful for the general overviews of what's going on in billing. And that might answer all your questions. And then maybe you just have a couple questions you want to reach out to support about just to smooth things off. Or maybe for some reason your school is quite different and is just trying some challenging things. And you want to go through an overview like this, except with someone there who you can talk to so we can deal with particular nuances that your school has. Finally, when you click on search a knowledge base, notice these promoted articles. This is probably where you found our group training here. You can also, this is a really important one, getting started with your school's new Populi site. And all of these you can forward on, they're public, so you don't need to be logged in to see them. So if someone's having trouble logging in, you can send them this handy little article. And if you forget that number that I just told you, you can go here and look that up. You can also find the number on our main website. Today we're talking about billing, so I'm going to zoom in right here on our billing help section, and I'm going to zoom in even deeper on our getting started page. Here's an introduction to Populi Financial. We use double entry accounting, so it's good to have a basic understanding of how that works. And then we're going to go from there into these steps. Now, I'll let you know that as you click on these steps, it's pretty bare bones. It's pretty streamlined, but each one of these steps has links to more detailed articles. So that way, if you're just trying to fly through these and figure out that one step you needed, it's pretty easy because they're pretty streamlined. And then when you want the detail, you click the link inside that step to drill deeper. And so that's how those are. So if you click on here and you say, this isn't enough information for me to set up a tuition schedule, well, you can go here, read more about setting up tuition schedules, and then it will totally break it down step by step, all these screenshots. I don't know how many pages this is, 4 or 5 pages, something like that. Maybe it's 3 pages. So there you go. All right. Now, I'm not going to spend any more time in the help section, but I'm going to walk through these steps. But instead of doing them like you would by opening each one of these articles, I'm going to do it in our fake school. So step 1, set up your chart of accounts. What is a chart of accounts? It's right up here in the financial section, and it's in accounting, and it's the first thing you'll land on, chart of accounts, once you click on accounting. What you want to do, if this isn't already done, and if you're brand new to your school, but your school's had Populi for 5 years, so this is set up, but you haven't set it up, it might be good for you to dig in here and look at it, just because, I don't know, maybe you'll catch something that was missed, or maybe you'll just have a good understanding of what's going on behind the scenes when you're doing your day-to-day work. You will need a financial admin role to be able to access this section of Populi. Now, we can add some accounts. There will be some default accounts in here with their own numbers. That's just, we gave you an example, and you do not have to abide by those at all. You can click on them and change the account number completely, change the name completely, or delete it altogether as long as it hasn't been used yet. If there's historic records tied to it, we're not going to let you delete it, just so that you don't mess up your historic records. If for some reason there are historic records, but it's all a mess because, there's been a lot of turnover and people were not doing it right, whatever, you can reach out to support and we can see if we can just reset all that for you. Although you will lose your historic data if you do that. And so you'd only want to do that if it was really bad, if someone had messed it up previously. Otherwise, you probably just want to go try and fix the couple things that need to be fixed. There are 3 accounts that Populi works with. So Populi is not a full accounting package. It just covers mainly the things that touch the student. So student billing and financial aid. We also have a donations piece, and we also have a bookstore and a library, and there's other places where fees might come in. We aren't accounts payable. We don't have a payroll software for you. We don't help you pay your utility bill, none of that stuff. It's just mainly the stuff that touches the students and other forms of income like bookstore or donations. So because of that, you're really only going to use 3 types: asset, and this would be things like accounts receivable, bank accounts, things like that. Liability. Liability is how we do all scholarships. So scholarships move through Populi as a liability, assuming that the money is probably not yours. It's coming from the government, or it's coming from a state grant, or it's coming from, so the federal government or state, or it's coming from some kind of fund, like a foundation that sort of has its own entity outside of your school. And so that's why we call it liability. Even if you have an institutional scholarship, you're still going to have to set this up as liability. And I understand that there are places where that doesn't really make sense. But that's how you have to do it so that you can actually add the financial aid awards for it. One other thing you might use liability for are deposits. And when I say deposits, I don't mean depositing money in your bank. I mean a deposit like a tuition deposit or a dorm room deposit, something that you will retain, the student might give you, you'll retain it and hang on to it and either apply it to their bill at a future date in the case of a tuition deposit, or it might be forfeited because they ended up not showing up. And so you just end up keeping that money. Or it might be, in the case of a dorm room deposit, same kind of thing, applied to their dorm room. Well, a dorm room deposit maybe would just be applied to damages or forfeited because they didn't get it, or even returned and refunded back to the student. And the third type you want to pay attention to is income. And that's straightforward: tuition, fees, donations, bookstore income, stuff like that. Expense you pretty much won't use. The only time you will use expense is if you need to write off bad debt and you want to write it off to a bad debt expense account. There are also applications if you're using the bookstore for expense. And equity is so rare among our clients, I won't even mention it. It's probably not something you'll need. And if you do, reach out to us and we'll dig into it. So that is step one. Make sure your chart of accounts are set up so that everything you do from here on out will be able to tie in to these chart of accounts. Step two, set up your tuition schedules. There's actually 4 different ways we charge money in Populi: tuition, fees, meal plans, and room plans. So the first one we're going to look at is tuition. Notice how tuition and fees are separate. I know some schools kind of lump it all together in one charge. In Populi, we have tuition and fees as separate things. Most schools do it as separate things, but I know some don't. So I just wanted to mention that. If we go into billing and settings, here's those 4: tuition, fees, meal plans, room plans. Here's my tuition schedules. If I want to add a new one, I just click add tuition schedule, give it a name. Is it credits or hours? And if I want, I can attach a refund policy. Right now, we haven't set up our refund policies, so I will just leave that there for now. Let's go ahead and look at one I already set up, actually. This one I've tied to specific accounts. So that's why I need to do chart of accounts first, so that we can tie those income accounts in. And I've got 2 brackets, and I could make 3 brackets, 4 brackets, 10 brackets. This is the most complex example I've seen. I know a lot of schools do it a lot simpler than this, but let's run through this. So this bracket says between 0 and 11.99 credits, the student is going to get charged a per credit amount. And then from 12, which is this school's full-time threshold, to 25, and 25 is just some big number because theoretically no student would ever take 25 credits. So we know we got all our bases covered. Every student will land here. If I put it at 18 and one student took 19 credits, well then they'll fall outside of this bracket. So 12 to 25, some big number captures everybody. For this full-time student now, 12 and up, I'm a flat amount, 4,200, no more per credit. Oh wait, we can even get a little more complex than that. We could say 4 credits above 18, this per credit amount will kick in as an additional charge, which means if the student took 19 credits, then they're going to owe 4,200 plus 350 for a total of 4,550, because 19 credits is 1 credit above 18. So we're adding that 1 per credit amount. And on and on. If it was 20 credits, then it would be 2 times 350, which would be 700, plus the flat rate would be 4,900. Now, a lot of you say, wow, that's cool, you can do all that stuff, but I just do per credit and that's it. Well, there you go. Pick some range, 0 to 30, and choose your per credit amount, whatever it is, and you're done. That's really easy. We can also choose a different income account if I want. I have a general tuition income account. I know a lot of schools will have a different tuition account for every program they have, or maybe even every degree. And so you can set those up that way. Okay, I don't want to get too far into the weeds because this doesn't apply to a lot of schools, but by default, this tuition schedule is going to kick in every single term all throughout the year. That's the same if you're a traditional semester school and have 3 terms, fall, spring, summer, or if you're a quarter school, or if you've got some weird non-traditional thing that you do 10 terms that all overlap each other throughout the year. Either way, this tuition schedule, when it's applied to somebody, is going to kick in every single term, however you have your term set up on the academic side. So it's a by-term tuition schedule. And by default, it's going to apply to all courses, all possible courses that the student could take in your course catalog. And if you want to take some courses out of this list, you can click edit and then uncheck these boxes for the courses you do not want this tuition schedule to charge for. So we'll just ignore them completely. If they register 3 credits for Architecture 510, that is not going to factor in to this tuition schedule if I uncheck it here. And then when I'm done, I can finish editing those courses. Final thing you want to do is you want to work with your academic team to make this a seamless, easy to do thing, a time saver. We're going to go to academics right now. We're going to go to programs. And in Populi, different schools define programs differently. In Populi, a program is just a container for a course of study. And the way you might want to divide your containers up is typically by standing. For example, my undergrad course has 4 standings, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. Whereas my graduate class or graduate program has 2 standings, first year, second year. So those need to be separate. Undergrad and grad need to be separate anyways for IPED's purposes. But if I wanted to do another, if I have another undergrad or another graduate and the standings land in different numbers of credits, I'll need to break out a different program for that. I can also do different grade scales by program. If you don't have one global grade scale, but you do grades a little bit differently in different programs. I could do different units. So maybe I've got an architecture program that is credits and also a nursing program that is hours. I can do that. I can have different awards and honors, awards as in honors like Dean's List kind of awards or cum laude, we call them honors. Those can be separated out by program. Different transcripts are separated by program. And you're wondering why I'm talking about all this academic stuff for y'all. The most important thing is tuition. How tuition is charged can be separated by program. So my undergrad here, I have a default tuition schedule assigned. I'll have to ask my academic team, click that edit button, and then check this tuition schedule for this program. What that means is during the admissions phase, when students are coming in and they get given a certain program, they're going to automatically get this tuition schedule. And from then on, Populi will automatically charge those students every term according to that tuition schedule. That's why it's such a time saver. You can add tuition schedules one by one. You can modify tuition schedules one by one, student by student. But if you could have it just automatically add by program, hopefully that will make your life a lot easier. All right, that is step 2. Step 3, refund policies. 2 different ways you can do refund policies. One is custom, and this tends to be what I see most of. It's most traditional. By default, every refund policy is going to give 100% refund before the start of the term. And then you can break it down in whatever number of days you want. I did this by 7s so that it follows weeks. You could do it by 30s so it follows months, or just 10, 15, whatever number of days you want. But what I've got here is if the student, after the term starts, if the student withdraws between day 0 and day 7, they're going to get an 80% refund, and Populi will automatically calculate that in. If between 8 and 14, it's going to be 50%. If between 15 and 21, it's only going to be 25%. And then after 21, no refund. And I can add more brackets. I can make fewer brackets and so on. That's the most straightforward that I usually see. You can also do prorated. And this is just, we get 100% refund up until 10 days into the term, no refund up to 100 days into the term, and no refund after the end of the term. And then Populi between days 11 and 100 is just going to figure out a different amount every single day that's going to be prorated. And I can choose when that starts. So I could have this proration start on day 11 when the 100% refund period ends, which means if I had this be 110, then day 11 is going to be a 1% refund. Or I could say, no, we're going to go it's going to start on the start date of the term. So they'll get 100% refund up until 10 days, but on day 11, they're starting out with an 11%, reverse, flip that. It would be a 89% refund on day 11, all the way till we get down to 0 at day 100. Notice how I used 100 because it's easier math for percentages, but Populi will figure that out for you. I think the reason most people don't use this one is because it's a little hard to explain to the student, whereas this one's much more straightforward. Once you have your refund policy, go back to your tuition schedule, hit edit right here across from the info, and then you can add it by selecting it. Next up, set up your fees. Step 4. I've got a bunch of fees here. If I want to add one, I just hit add fee, give it a name, give it a description. What kind of fee do I want it to be? Flat rate, per credit, per course. Those are some options. Depending on what types of programs you have, you'll also have the option for per hour or per clinical hour if you're like an acupuncture school or nursing school. Then I can give it an amount. If it's a per credit or per course, then if I want, I can give it a max amount. So $25 per credit, but no more than 100. Then I can say if it's refundable or not, does financial aid apply to this fee or not? Should I report it on the 1098-T? And then like always, we want to tie it to an income account. Some schools have one general fees account and that's it. Some schools split this up because they want to report in a little more detail. So they have multiple fees accounts and tie them to different fees. Here's a fee I already have set up. It's per course, $30 per course. It's a lab fee. And once you have the fee set up, you can make it automated, which is really handy by using fee rules. So my fee rules right now are match any of these conditions. And the conditions I've chosen are if the student enrolls in courses from this course group, I've got a bunch of different course groups, and I'm choosing this one in particular. If we go to academics, you'll be able to see what courses are in that course group. But if they enroll in this one or this one, because it's an any, it's either or, either this one or that one, they're going to get that $30 per course. So this is a place where you can also work with academics and say, hey, can you put these 5 courses in a course group? Because those are our labs and we have an extra fee associated with those. And that'll make it really easy for you. Even if it doesn't make academic sense, that course group will never be used in an academic setting because there's no academic reason to lump together those 5 courses, possibly. You can still ask them to do that just for your benefit. I could also say all. So let's say I want to do something like all enrolled credits between 1 and 11. So they're part-time and they're enrolled in one of these courses. And so I'm doing all. So it's not either or, but both and. And there's lots of other options here. Notice how all auditing gets handled on the fee side, not the tuition side. You can have fees associated with certain degrees, certain majors and minors. We call them specializations, emphases, majors, minors, concentrations, and so on. A certain campus, a course delivery method. This would be online course versus on-campus course. Even maybe only certain terms have this fee. Maybe only fall term gets this fee. Or maybe every term but fall term gets this fee. Maybe everyone who's tagged with a certain tag. Maybe I made up my own tag to help me organize students and I want to associate a fee with that. Or a custom info field. I made a piece of information that I'm tracking and I built it myself because Populi has custom fields that you can build yourself. And I want to tie a fee to that data point. So lots of options. If you get your analytical juices flowing and your analytical brain working, hopefully you're able to automate all your fees. All right, next. Step 5, meal plans and room plans. So this is 3 and 4, meal plans, room plans. Very easy to add. Just hit add, give it a name, tie it to an account, and then give it an amount. Notice how under meal plans, we don't have some kind of fancy cafeteria module or a card that they can swipe that slowly removes the money from it. It's very straightforward. It's just one charge for that term, $1,200. Or if it's lunch only, one charge for that term, $700. and you'll have to figure out outside of Populi how to use that money up. Or you just charge them that one, and it's up to them to decide if they're going to show up every day for lunch or just forfeit that lunch for that day, because they're going to get charged for it anyways because you charged them up front. And you'll add these on the student, or you can task your campus life people with doing that. They'll be able to add them too. Next up is room plans. This is for dorm rooms. Also very straightforward. Name, account number, and amount. However, room plans can go one step further because you can actually create dorms in the campus life section, and you can see who's in that dorm and what room. So here we've got 3 beds in this dorm, 2 beds in this one, 3 beds in this one. Capacities 2, capacities 3. How many are used? Both are used, nothing's available. Here's my occupants. No one's in this room right now. 1 person's in this room right now. I can associate violations with things that they might have done and consequences to those violations. Like if they get a certain violation too many times in a term or a month, you can set that logic up. So maybe if you get 2 parking tickets or 2 outside of curfew, we'll do that. Too late for curfew in a month, then you got to go talk to the dean as a consequence. So there's more to it with the dorm stuff than just the room plan. Unlike the meal plan. Meal plan, there's no fancy bells and whistles. You just add to the student. And your campus life team, you can hand it over to them. So if they have access to campus life, they don't have access to the rest of the financial for the student, but they can add room plans and meal plans for terms and maybe some extra fees if they have some kind of issue with that student breaking a window or whatever. Parking tickets. All right, those are the 4 ways things can be charged. From there, I'm going to do a little detour. So we're at step 5, moving on to step 6. Before we go on to payment plans though, let's take a little detour. I want you to understand how Populi, what's automated, what's not, how it works. In Populi, if you've got your tuition schedule set up right, your fee rules set up right, you've added your meal plans, you've put students in different rooms so then their room plans have kicked in, all those charges are going to land on this page. It's under financial, under billing, under current, under pending charges. Notice how these are pending charges. So Populi doesn't automatically invoice students as soon as something happens behind the scenes. It just puts them in this pending state so that you can review them. And if you're not familiar with Populi, you might not know this, but in Populi, whenever you see a table of information, you can filter that information down. Here, I've got a bunch of different ways I can do this. I could filter down all tuition. I could filter down all lab fees specifically, or types of tuition specifically. Once I filter that, apply the filter, once I filter it down, then I can email this group, text this group, or get out into a spreadsheet so I can maybe build a report for somebody else. Maybe I want to add all the primary contact info as data points and then hit go. And now I've got my spreadsheet. And those 3 things are everywhere in Populi, even if you're academics, admissions, anywhere. Filter. And from there you can email, text, or export. Here we've got some handy things. I can filter and then invoice whatever I filtered, or even delete all these charges in batch. So there is a way, even though it's not fully automated on Populi side, there is a way where as these charges come through, you can just go through and invoice everybody in batch. I would advise if you're just starting to use Populi, then you should click on students one by one, maybe 10 or 15, just to make sure that your tuition and fees, all that stuff that you set up is calculating correctly before you invoice everybody in batch. Make sure it's working. But let's take a look at one individual. Here's Herman Snyder. We're looking at some charges he has for fall 2013. You'll notice I'm a little behind on Herman, making him pay his money, but it's just a fake school, so I guess that's okay. I can click this little pencil here. Because it's pending, I can edit it. No transaction has happened yet. It's just pending. So I can lower this amount or change it to something else. I can add another fee real quick. I can delete this fee altogether. I can do whatever I want because it's just pending It's just ready for my review. If there is something wrong here, I wouldn't just edit it most of the time. Most of the time, you should go back to your settings and mess with them so that Populi is calculating it correctly. It takes a little time to do that, but it will save you so much time in the long run than having to edit each one individually. Notice how in my summary, there is nothing due right now. The reason for that is because all these are pending charges. Once I'm ready to invoice, whether I do it in batch on that previous page or I do it here, I could drop a charge and not invoice it yet. I'll invoice it later, or I can invoice all three, and when I'm ready, I hit save. Notice how all those pending charges move from here to invoiced. And now my pencil is gone. A transaction has happened behind the scenes in Populi, and so I can't just mess with it. It's live, it's really going on. And the student, next time they log in, they'll see that they owe you some money, and they'll be able to pay through your credit card merchant if you've connected your credit card merchant to us. In fact, if I click on this invoice, I can drill a little deeper. I can see what's going on here. I've already got a payment applied for financial aid to this invoice because that automatically was kicked in. You don't have to have things automatically kicked in, but my settings do that. And then I can even zoom in deeper to this transaction. I can void the transaction if I need to start all over because I made a mistake. And I can see detail as in which accounts were touched with the transaction, where were the debits and credits, and so on. Now that we've got that detour, let's go back into step 6 and take a look at our payment plans. All right, so payment plans, give it a name. You can give a certain payment plan fee, and you just want to choose a corresponding fee from your fees where it will go to, and you can decide, is this going to be a flat fee or a % of charges placed in the plan? And you can also do a late fee. And again, choose that from a fee you've already set up in your fees and decide, is it going to be a flat fee or a % of charges on the plan? Those are optional. You don't have to do those if you don't want to. You can have a grace period, also optional. You can have a minimum amount. So invoices under 500 won't qualify for this plan, or that's optional. This is a great thing to check if you haven't already. Subtract scheduled aid before calculating payments. If a student's been, their aid has been accepted, it's approved, it's all good to go, but it's not going to go live until another month. You probably want the payment plan to factor that in so they don't overpay, and then the aid hits, and then you got to give them a refund. Just save you some work so you don't have to do that refund process. If you want to get into the details, you can decide what the eligible charges are for this payment plan. I just have it set to all, but you could drill down and say maybe no tuition is allowed in this payment plan or no fees. And then I choose my schedule. How do I want it? Do I want it based on very specific calendar dates, based on number of days into that term, based on when I applied the plan? So like if it's 10 days into the term, then it will start on that day as day 1 because I applied it then, or recurring fixed amount. Regardless, I choose up my number of payment plans and always think one more than the number because we've got payment 1, payment 2, and then balance due. The reason we have balance due is that's your catch-all. That's when everything comes up. So if they were behind on one and got a late fee, but they didn't pay the late fee, that's going to come due on balance due. And so that's why that's all there. So this one says number of days into the term, 10 days in, 33%. 30 days after the term starts, 33%. Everything else, 60 days. And I can add another payment and another payment, as many as I want. This one's an interesting one, recurring fixed amount payments. So I can just click that and say every month on the such and such day of the month, the 5th, $1,000 is going to be charged as long as they owe something. And so this is just really handy, straightforward, and it'll just keep on going as long as they owe you money. So these are essentially all templates. If I go to an individual student, like Simon's student, And so I'm going to delete this payment plan. All right, so no payment plan for Simon. He's got a bunch of unpaid invoices. I can click add payment plan. And if I do remember the long term isn't allowed because any invoices under 500 don't work. Test payment plan, I don't think has that limitation. So I've got these small invoices that can work. Got a bunch of small invoices. A lot of this invoices have already been covered by some aid. And so this one has, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I get a quick preview of what this payment plan is going to look like. And I can decide some of these invoices I don't want to apply to this payment plan, or I do. And then once I save that, it'll populate right here. I can click this little edit button and recalculate it starting from today, remove it, show details, or I can edit deadlines. So let's say Simon calls me up and he says, hey, you know that first payment that's due on October 31st? I'm not going to be able to pay that one. Can I skip that one? I'll say, sure. And then click that trash can. And that moves that $71 down into balance due. So it will come due at some point. If I want, I can add a new deadline. Let's say February 28th, 2021. So I'm tacking it on the end. And now it's back to normal. 71 is that balance due. I could also modify one of these deadlines. So since he skipped October, I'm gonna have him pay his November a little early, maybe. Or maybe I just wanted to pay a little more on that first payment plan. And again, that affects my balance due. Next up, check templates. This is something that is pretty tedious. If you send us a voided check, then we can help you with it. But if you want to cut checks out of Populi for refunds, then you'll be able to do that here. Although I would reach out to support first and see if they can help you, because if you're not a developer and not patient in all those little details, it's gonna drive you crazy. Next up, 8, online bill pay. I keep on mentioning they can pay their bills online as long as you connect us to your credit card merchant. Here into the settings, this is on the right-hand side. We've got some information you can put in. I'm going to skip over that for now. We'll go into online payments. And you do need to answer this stuff, especially the required stuff, before you can add a gateway. And a gateway is how you connect your credit card merchant to Populi. Some things that are required are privacy policies, refund policies. These are things you make up yourself. And you shouldn't just copy our privacy policy, because our privacy policy is a different relationship. It's between us and a school, a software provider and a school. So your privacy policy between a school and a student is probably going to have some different things in there. The reason these are required is because pretty much any terms of service for like Visa or MasterCard or any of those cards is going to require that you guys have it. And so that's why we require it. You can do a credit card convenience fee percentage if you want. Just associate a fee income account with that. You can allow recurring payments. Once I've got those things set up, then I can add my payment gateway. There's 2 ways I can do it. One is through Stripe. You can look them up at stripe.com. You're going to pay the same prices that they have on their website as you will with Populi, through Populi. So you're not paying extra. You're not buying it from us and then we're reselling it. None of that. You're actually getting it directly from Stripe. I don't think they post their nonprofit pricing, so that would be worth asking them about if you want to know that. And if you're nonprofit, and you just click connect to Stripe here. And you'll be pointed to a, 2-page form. It's pretty easy. If you already have a Stripe account, you can sign in here. Otherwise, fill out your information, including the bank number where you want all the money to go. And you're done. Authorize access to this account. If you want to do e-checks, which particularly with Stripe is very affordable, and this is not turned on, reach out to our support team and see if we can turn that on for you. We have some certain rules through Stripe we're not allowed to turn on for some people. So you just have to check with us. The second one is authorize.net. Authorize.net works well too. You can sign in if you already have Moolah. So that's a handy way to do it. If you already have authorize.net, you just find your login and transaction key, and you can do that here. If you also have echeck.net, you can do e-checks. But a lot of the authorize.net process can be a little more tedious. The reason we have it though is because it's very universal. So if you want to keep your current credit card processor, let's say you're with Chase Payment Tech and you don't want to switch to Stripe, then you can use authorize.net as a gateway. And you can reach out even to Chase Payment Tech and say, hey, do you guys offer any deals on using authorize.net as a payment gateway? Because authorize.net kind of has these different deals they do with different people. So reach out to, if you want to keep your current credit card merchant, reach out to them, see if they can give you a special deal on this. And then you'll use authorize.net, not as an actual merchant, but as a gateway. So it'll go Populi to authorize.net to whoever you're connected to, instead of going to, for our example, Chase Payment Tech directly. Once you have your gateway set up, and I have 3 set up here, then you can decide which transactions use which ones. So I can have all my tuition fees go credit cards and e-checks, or I could say, no, we just don't want to do credit cards. Everyone do e-checks. I can have my bookstore on a totally different channel. Maybe it's kind of really its own business. And so they have their own gateway that we want to run it through. And there you go. Once you have that set up, if a student owes you money and they log in, they will see you have unpaid invoices on the very first alert that they see when they log in, or maybe a red overdue if they're overdue. And when they click on that, it'll take them directly to that payment page. If they're not paying, but their employer is, or their church is, or their parents are, or something like that, then you can click someone else paying and copy and paste this link and send it, and the student can send it on to that person. They'll see a quick summary of what they owe. If they want, they can get more detail in their detailed charges. And then they can choose between the options you gave them. We've got e-check is first. That's cheaper for you guys. So if they go with that, then that will save you a little money. Or they can go with credit card, and I've built in a 3% convenience fee. So it shows the amount that they owe, and then it will also show again what they'll actually be charged because of that convenience fee. If you allow the student, they can actually opt into a payment plan right here, and they can see what that payment plan is going to look like. But that's only if you allow the payment plans to be used that way. You do not have to turn them on like that. You can reserve it so that only you are the ones who are allowed to add payment plans. All right, I think that is about where we're going to wrap up. I can now go to the student, and we'll walk around the student's profile a little bit, just so you have an idea of how that works. Under financial, we have a few different sections. We've got a dashboard. The dashboard will show unpaid invoices, any unapplied credits, and you can apply those by clicking this and then decide what invoice you want them to apply to. Recent transactions. Here's that tuition schedule that automatically kicked in because he's on that particular program. Some summary information. And if they call me, I can make a payment on their behalf and just take their credit card over the phone. So I have access to that same form they do if I want. I also have access to that someone else paying link if I want. So I could send this off to his employer, whoever might be paying. I can also zoom in by term. We already were on this page for another student. Look at a certain term and see what's pending, what's invoiced, what's going on. I can see financial aid information. If you're on the billing team, then you're not going to be able to edit the financial aid, but you will be able to see what's going on so that you can plan it accordingly. And then we've got a history button. This is just a running balance. So both the student and I can see this, what we charged them, what he paid, what aid came in, all the way up until today. Last thing, you'll want to work with your, probably reach out to our support, but work with your academics on this. If you want, you can set up what's called an enrollment agreement. And an enrollment agreement is when students are registering themselves, it'll pop up just as they're trying to save their registration, and it will show whatever you want your enrollment agreement to be. Maybe it's a 2-page PDF thing, whatever you put in there will pop up, and the student will have to check a box and say, by checking this box, I agree to pay this amount, or all charges, that might be required, or however specific you want it to be. We can actually calculate that based on that tuition if you want, on that registration, what they're going to pay, unless you know you're going to add a few fees manually later. That will work fine. But they have to check that and agree to it, and then you'll have that on record as they register. That is the high-level overview. Lots of other details we could get into. Any questions? I'm willing to get into other places if you want. And remember, if you were late to the party before I announced it earlier, the Q&A box is the best place to put questions. I found one in the chat. Okay, good. From now on, if you can, put them in the Q&A. But I did happen to look at the chat this time, so let's dig into that one. Deirdre has a question. I have a question about applying payments that can wait till the end of the meeting. Basically, I'm curious if the order that payments or credits can be applied to expenses can be altered so that preferred, restricted, scholarship, etc. can be applied to expenses before a loan or other unrestricted funds. All right, this is a good question. I'm going to dig into it a little bit. If anyone else has questions, type away, put them in. I know there's a logic, Deirdre, behind how payments, whether customer or student payments or aid payments, get applied to different charges and invoices, and I'm not sure what that order is. There's a built-in logic behind the scenes that happens. You can reach out to our support and ask them. It might be in the knowledge base, but I'm not sure. So I think this is one that's going to require a little more digging, which is always a great question. If you stump me, we got to go to digging a little deeper. So what I would do is I would reach out to support, ask that question, or give them a call, and they might need to do a little research themselves. But really, it's kind of divided up by invoices. So I don't know if you saw that as I was flying by it, but whenever you have any unapplied payments or credits that didn't auto apply to a particular invoice, then you can click apply and decide what invoice you want that amount to go to. So if you're dividing your fees and tuition and room plans and meal plans up by invoice, instead of putting them all on the same invoice, then you'll be able to do that. All right, we got a question. Stephanie says, you mentioned that once pending charges are invoiced, the edit pencil's gone because they're posted. What is the best way to fix after the fact? Good question, Stephanie. Really, there's only one way to fix it, and that is to go into that invoice and go into the transaction tied to the invoice and click void, and then you got to start all over. So you want to be careful before you invoice students, because there needs to be, once you start making transactions, there needs to be an audit trail just for all of your protection. If you ever get audited and all that kind of stuff, there needs to be an audit trail to make sure there's no monkey business going on behind the scenes, or even, I mean, not monkey business on purpose, but monkey business that if it just looks like monkey business, even if it's not, then that's a bad deal. So once you invoice somebody, the only way to undo it is to void the transaction associated with that invoice. That's why I mentioned that even though this is a super cool feature where you can invoice everybody in batch, careful with your finger on the trigger of this one, because you don't want it to go too fast until you really know that Populi is charging people correctly. Because anyone who doesn't get charged correctly, you're gonna have to go in and void the invoice and start all over with those folks. Good question. Any other questions? All right, looks like we're done, unless someone squeezes a question in last minute. Otherwise, enjoyed being with you guys, and hope to see you soon. Reach out to our support if you have any questions. Visit our YouTube channel, visit our knowledge base, stick around in there, or reach out to your account manager if you want to get some one-on-one webinar time. So take care, everybody.